There we go. And okay. And we're gonna share our screen, and then we can go. There we go. And we need this one. Okay, I'm just trying to move this to the side so we see everything. And hopefully this is going to show us people. There are more people who want to join. It should. Now we need to kind of figure this out. All right.
All right.
Good.
I say we get
Go
the show
ahead.
on the road.
Let's get the show on the road.
So go ahead, dear. Ladies first.
Okay. So welcome everyone to our webinar today. The topic is 5 essential steps to grow a flourishing kitchen garden. And we are very, very happy to work together with SEEDit and to have this opportunity to give you this webinar and to help you growing your kitchen garden. And yeah, quick words. Oh yeah, there, see, we get to know where people want to enter. Perfect. So yeah, a little word about us. Like, we're Eric and Ines from My Nordic Garden. We are a kitchen garden business in Hawkesbury, Ontario. And we are specialized in raised bed kitchen gardens. We do everything from the first consultation, planting plans, designs, and installations in our area, but we also do online consultations and designs all over Ontario. And as far as I know, like, everybody is from Ontario, so that's absolutely our field. And we're happy to be here today. You want to say anything?
Oh, I'll start with my word. Just
Okay.
a quick word where we also do a lot of hardscaping and preparations for basically sitting your kitchen garden on proper foundations, proper bases, just to make sure everything sits well. We're going to go through that during our webinar. Now, have to excuse me, I'm a little bit sick also.
It got us. Yeah, before I forget it, we'd like to ask you to, if you have a question, you can put it in the chat. We will go through the chat at the end of the webinar, so we don't have any disturbances throughout the webinar, but we will get to as much or as many questions as possible in the end, and then we have also time to chat one-on-one a bit. We're recording it. The recording is going to be sent out to either later today or tomorrow. Depends when because we have to finish an install later today, so we'll see when we get around to it. But it's going to come, and then you can watch it in peace and quiet again and go through everything, because it's going to be a ton of information. All right, so just have to move this again a little bit. Okay, you keep an eye on the
Sure.
people that join. Okay, so everybody that is here definitely got our emails. So you should also have gotten our little workbook that hopefully helps you to make notes and to follow the webinar. And you most likely have seen that we have 5 big points we want to cover today. So first of all, we want to talk about our goals. So why do we even start a garden? It's kind of seems a bit daunting sometimes, because we're like, of course we want a garden to grow food and whatnot, but we really should think about like what we want to do and how before we really get out of there and do it. Saves us a lot of heartache sometimes. Then we're going to cover the right setup, because if that's one of the essential parts of a garden success, of having the right things in the right locations. And then we're going to have a look at our or your local climate. Then we're going to cover the plans, and then we bring it all together so you will have a good plan for your gardening year and you know what to do when. All right. So the big questions we should ask ourselves when we want to start a garden are why, who, and how. So why? What is your goal? Why do you want to start a garden? Do you want to grow as much as possible in the space you have? Or is it more of a health reason? Do you need a place to retreat, to kind of, get away from the everyday life, to breathe, to enjoy nature? And you can see only these two different kinds of whys, they determine how you would kind of create a garden. If you're focusing on as much produce as possible, the design of your garden will most likely be different than if you just want a place to relax and enjoy and, get away. Yeah. So it's really important to make it clear for yourself, why do we even start a garden? And then it really determines your the way you will set up your garden. And also, if you want to invite a lot of wildlife, you might have a lot of other features in your garden, like a bird bath or an insect hotel. You might not be interested in if you don't like bugs that much, So it's a different story for everybody. So this is really important for you. Take a minute and think about, why do you even want to start a garden? Then the next big question is who. So who is going to work, eat, and enjoy the garden? Is it only going to be you, one person, that's going to eat and work in the garden? Then the garden should probably not be too big, so it's not overwhelming. Or is it your whole family of I don't know, 5 people? Then the garden can be a bit bigger because you need a lot of food and you have probably also a lot of helping hands. Do you have help when you start the garden, especially in the beginning? If we want to start a garden from scratch, like imagine there's nothing there yet and you really want to go for it and have a beautiful garden this year, then you might need a helping hand from maybe neighbors or even landscapers to help you set up your garden so you can really go this year. Think about it. What is the case for you? And then it might determine the size and also the design. Another aspect is, who is going to come to your garden? Is it maybe your grandma in a wheelchair that needs access to the garden? So the pathways need to be wide enough. It needs to be flat so you can go there with a wheelchair or a walker. Or do you have little kids? Maybe raised beds in that case would be easy because they, if we have in-ground beds, the kids usually they just walk over it sometimes, and then it's kind of for us parents, oh my God, what just happened? So really think about it, who's going to use the garden, and then you will design the garden the way you need it to be. And the last big question for now is the how. So how much time and money and space do you have for your garden? I know your dream might be having a huge garden, but then you're very busy. You have a job that kind of, takes up most of your day. Then a big garden might be a bit too much. You should spend about an hour a week, if it's only on the weekends, in your garden to really keep up with all the maintenance. Of course, more would be better. Half an hour a day would be ideal, but to be realistic, for most of us with a busy life, we don't have that much time. So create a garden that's really maintainable for you. And then, of course, in the money aspect, how much are you willing to invest into a garden? We often ask that as one of the first questions when we talk to clients. How much are you willing to invest? How much worth is the garden for you as well? And of course, the investment then determines what the material you're going to use, the way you're going to install it, and the size, of course. And also, how much space do you have in your garden? Do you have a big lot, or do you have a small backyard? And that, of course, then reflects in the design. So these are the essential questions we always cover in the beginning of a consultation. And yeah, you just think for yourself what works for you, and then it makes it easier for you to create a garden that really works and you will be happy with. And if you have any questions regarding that, please throw your question in the chat and we get back to that in the end. And now Eric is going to take over here.
Now we're going to cover the technical aspects here about your garden. Basically, this part it's about finding the ideal location for your garden. Ideally, you would like your garden to be close, close to your backyard, close to a door, somewhere that you're going to pass by and really notice it and see it all the time. You don't want to put it in a back corner where you're kind of just gonna, it kind of gets lost back there and you kind of forget about it. So it's best to put it somewhere close by where you're gonna, it draws your attention. You kind of want to get in there. Of course, you want to put your garden in a full sun area that's more than 6 hours a day to grow most of your produce. That said, you don't have to worry if you don't have an area close or something that's full sun area. You could still grow other produce. You might be surrounded by tall buildings or trees or anything like that, but that's okay. You could still grow like root vegetables, leafy veg, and herbs and stuff like that. In half shade or shaded areas. That's not a problem. What we always say is go out, create a sun shade map. You could do this by going out with your camera at different times of the day, different seasons, and just go take pictures of the areas that are potential garden sites for you. And don't worry if it's the shadiest spot, basically. Yeah.
As we see here.
Yeah, don't worry if it's the shadiest spot. As you can see, our garden here in the winter time, it's fairly shady in this area. But as we move towards the summertime, prime growing season, as you could see, it's very sunny in this area. And so that's where we want to place our garden. So next up, we'll go with water. Water is an important part, of course. You want to place your garden close to a water source. A hose connection or a spigot near your house is a good place. Water barrels or rainwater collection systems. Rainwater is ideal to use because it has the nutrients and minerals already in it, and natural water is always the best water you would want to use for your garden. You can also use oyas or olas, which are clay pots used all the way back from Egyptian times. And they basically work by filling them with water, and you bury them in your garden and they will slowly release the water through evaporation and the wick effect. And of course, we have a modified oya sometimes that we use, and that's bigger pipes that's buried in your raised bed with the elbow coming up. It just makes it easier for you to be able to fill the pipes, from a standing position. If you're unable to bend or dig or anything like that, it makes it much easier. And of course, we have the irrigation system. That's our preferred method. Of course, you can hook this onto a timer. There's a drip hose irrigation you can get, or a spray irrigation. Drip hose is pretty much ideal, I would say. And the ideal time to water your garden, of course, is in the morning, and that way your plants will have the water supply they need for the hot day to come. So next up,
soil.
well, next up we have soil. So soils, of course, it's composed of a mixture of small, medium, and large particles. You have loamy soils, sandy soils, silt, and clay. Loamy soil is ideal for vegetable gardening. Its mineral composition is 40-40-20, about this concentration of sand, silt, and clay. Most of us, however, will have to deal with clay or sandy soil, which of course would need amendment. Um, Clay soil has good structure and has good nutrients. However, it drains really, really poorly, and it has low porosity for the water and for water and air pockets. You want the organisms and the roots to really, sink down in there. Um, so it would require amendment, of course, and for that you would add compost and till yearly. You really have to regularly till clay soil to really break up those clumps and really mix it into your compost. Of course, sandy soil, come to sandy soil, it drains really well, but it lacks a lot of structure. It's kind of like little rocks. You can let them fall through your fingers. Um, Again, you would amend that soil with compost and tilling. It takes a little less work than the clay soil, but it has good air pockets and things. The organisms and the roots can reach deep in there. Again, amend with compost.
Mhm.
So then we'll move on to beds and trellises, my favorite part. So of course there are different ways of gardening. You can garden in ground, and oftentimes it's difficult to do in-ground gardening because of course you have to regularly amend your soil oftentimes. Containers are a good solution for small scale growing. Um, for example, if your garden is in a shaded area and you want to grow tomatoes or something like that, that requires a lot of sun, you can always grow your tomatoes in a container and move them out to your balcony or somewhere that's really sunny, and uh, the tomatoes will do much better there. Of course, as Ina stated, we're a raised bed kitchen garden company, so we're partial to raised bed gardening. The soil content is really easy to control. There's less pest and disease issues, better drainage in a raised garden bed. It thaws quicker, of course, in the winter. There are different types of raised beds you can use. So we like to use the sustainable method with wooden raised beds. I use Eastern white cedar as it's sustainable here. I get it from a mill about 20 minutes away. And it's very it's an oily wood, so it lasts many years. Pests don't really like to chew it, like carpenter ants or things like that. So they last a good while. You don't want to use pine or spruce or anything like that, as they will rot. And people often ask me, cedar's expensive, so what else can I use? I would say if you wanted to go with a little bit cheaper option, use hemlock, but never pressure treated lumber, especially if you're growing, food for consumption. Um, of course, we have cord and steel beds, which are beautiful. They get a natural patina through weathering, which is a fancy way to say rusting, but they rust very easily, and then the process stops at a certain depth. So these beds last really long, 10, 15 years. You'll get out of these no problem at all. They look beautiful, as you can see. Of course, we have corrugated steel. Um, these often come in galvanized. People often ask, well, does galvanized metal leach lead? Um, I used to actually ask that too, but I've done extensive studying actually over this, and there are a lot of videos that you can see of people who have tested their native soil and then tested soil in their corrugated steel galvanized beds. Excuse me. And it's the leaching is minimal to none actually. And so I'll move on to stone beds. Stone beds are also a beautiful choice, very natural. You can face them in any way you want. They'll last a really long time. Also a very, very good choice. And of course, we touched on it. You have grow bags and cloth and containers that you can use, easy to move around. And,
Oh, really got you. Need a drink?
excuse me. No, okay. So of course, next we have trellises. These are good for vertical growing, and I like to say you maximize your space with these if you want to grow tomatoes or cucumbers or beans or something like that. These are perfect. There are three main types of trellises we use. So we have our arc trellises, a grander look, if you will. We have panel trellises, which are great for border gardens, as you can put them in the back, and you can have your climbing veg in the back there. And we have obelisks, which are also great because you can place them literally in the middle of your bed or wherever. Well, these are the main three trellises that we will use in our kitchen garden.
And of course, now here you don't have to use metal because, of course, it's relatively expensive. But bamboo stakes or anything, or even if you have, just cut a couple of trees and you can use those branches, and there are always possibilities to have a natural and less expensive way of gardening.
So of course, now we have covers. Covering is also very good, especially for us here in the north. So we want to extend our growing season, of course. There are different kinds of things we could do. You could lay your row covers there directly, as you see in the first picture, right over your plants, and kind of keep the heating, keep the warmth in there. You can make tunnels. This you could do with you can use PVC pipe or some cattle fence or something like that, and throw your row cover over it. It's good for plants that are getting a little taller that you don't kind of compress down. Of course, we have cold frames, which is best. These are really good. I'm partial to cold frames because they keep a lot of heat in there, especially if you use glass tops. They really keep the sun's heat in there. You have polytunnels, which are a good alternative to greenhouses since they're a little bit cheaper. A lot of people use polytunnels. We had one briefly, but we're going to build a greenhouse in our yards. And of course, you have greenhouses, which is the ideal situation if you want to grow through the winter. And installation. So of course, that's me. So during installation, you really, really want to take your time. You want to really level your ground. If you're using wood beds, especially, don't put them directly on the grass. The bottoms are good. They're going to rot, even if you use the best quality wood. They just rot a lot faster. Of course, we'll make pathways around your beds for easy access to everything. And as Enos mentioned before, you can use pavers or something like that if anyone with disabilities are going to use the garden. Make sure your thresholds are low, easy to get over. Of course, and like I said, just level it nicely. Don't put it in the grass. Take your time. This is the most important part. Is the ground preparation. This is what's going to make your garden last the longest.
And look the best. Okay. And now let's get to the fun part. So what to grow when? First of all, we're going to cover the climate. Before we start like buying plants and planting them outside, we need to know when is the right time to plant them. And this is usually the things beginner gardeners get wrong. Then they wonder, oh, I planted my lettuce in the middle of June. Why does it bolt now? It's because it's the wrong season for this plant. It's a cool season crop. It can't stand heat. As soon as it gets heat, it starts to, it gets triggered to produce a flower, which is then bolting. So we need to understand our local climatic conditions when we want to grow successfully. And it's actually less complicated than it might sound. So first of all, I know, like, because everybody of us kind of lives somewhere else in Ontario, but we have similar climates. Of course, the south is a bit warmer, and then us up here, and then Sudbury. But in general, our seasons are the same. So I'm going to take the example of Ottawa, since we're kind of in the middle, and we are not far away from Ottawa. So what you want to do is find a climate diagram of your region that you might not find a climate diagram like of your town, but look for the closest climate.
Here comes 10 habits of people who stay effortlessly fit.
And weather. I'm just gonna mute you. Sorry. Yeah, the closest climate and weather station to you. You can find them on the on Almanac, on www.almanac.com, and there you can usually find the closest station to you, and also it gives you your last and first frost dates, which are the two most important times you want to know for your region. So for Ottawa, the last frost date in spring is around May 13. So we just passed that here. We are now in the clear. We can start planting tomatoes, cucumbers, and all our warm season crops outside. If you live further in the north, your frost date might be more like towards the end of May or beginning of June. And I know people in the Toronto area, their frost date is at the beginning of May or even the end of April, which we are always envious about. But and that's really, really important to know. Find that out for your area. And then next important date is the first frost date in fall. For us here, it is September 26th. Again, if you live further north, it's going to be earlier in September. And if you live further south, it's going to be in October. So yeah. And these 2 dates, of course, they are like kind of time frames. Now, this is like nothing that's written in stone, but it gives you an orientation. And these dates determine the length of your, like we say, like growing season, of the frost-free growing season. That's the time when you can grow tomatoes, cucumbers, squash, peppers, and so on. Everything that is frost sensitive. We're gonna come back to that topic in a minute. But there are a couple of more things we want to learn about our climate, and which are really important for us as gardeners. We want to find out the maximum and minimum temperatures we're dealing with in our garden. So for Ottawa, we can see here the maximum average temperature is in July, and it's around 27 degrees. I just moved this here. So here we have the temperature. So 27 degrees, we can expect to be the maximum. Of course, there are days where it's going to be over 30 degrees Celsius, but on average, it's 27. And the minimum average temperature is -15. Of course, we all know that we can easily deal with temperatures, you know, -30 or 40 even, but these are exceptional dates. And the average temperature is what we work with. And we want to know the precipitation. So we need to know if we live in an area that deals with drought a lot, or if we have enough precipitation to actually grow really well, we don't need to water that much. It's important to make a decision, is it worth for me to install an irrigation system or not? For us up here, you can see that our precipitation is actually pretty good. It's really high all year long. Most importantly, in the growing season, we have rain throughout the summer. So installing an irrigation system for us, it might be not like terribly necessary, but if we are busy and we also want to go on vacation in the summer, then it might be a good idea to have it on autopilot so we don't have to worry about it. And of course, we have to have a look at our extreme weather conditions, and they are becoming more and more with climate change. So when we create our gardens, we have to keep that in mind. We need to like our garden has to be kind of very, how do you say, like stable, like strong. Our structures, like we deal with strong winds, tornadoes, thunderstorms and whatnot. So, and also in the winter, if we put up a greenhouse or a polytunnel, it needs to be able to deal with a lot of snow. So really invest in good materials, then yeah, being discouraged that a polytunnel collapsed as ours did. And it didn't handle it. So we had a very cheap polytunnel, and it didn't make it through winter number 3, where we had a lot of ice on it, and it just collapsed. And that's kind of, it's a shame. And yeah, so these are just the things to keep in mind. Yeah, and they will help you to make the right decisions for your gardens. But now this really comes to the fun parts, the plants. So in your workbook, you have a page where we prepared that we can list all the plants that you want to grow in your garden, because this is really important. Grow what you're really gonna eat. You know, if you hate kale, then just don't plant it, because it's just gonna take up space and nobody wants it, and then it's kind of a waste. So make a list and write down what you usually buy at the grocery store, because these are in the end the things you will save on, and these are also the things you're gonna consume. And we want like to help you to be able to eat as much from the garden as possible. And then when you have that list,
put something for the fridge to eat.
When you have that list,
go back to work
and categorize those plants and put them in the groups of leafy greens and herbs, roots and fruits. And in the next step, we're gonna clarify why we're gonna do that. Of course, some of you might think like, oh God, where are the onions here? So we just tried to make it easy. Of course, we could have add a group of bulbs and tubers, but we want to keep it as simple as possible. So we focus on leafy greens, for example, gray kale, lettuces, cilantro, dill, anything you can see here in the pictures, basically. Roots include carrots, parsnips, beets, radishes, and our fruiting plants include tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, squashes. So everything that needs to flower first and then produce a fruit. And a word on that, it's really important to have those categories in mind. Because when you think of the life of a plant, when a seed sprouts, the first thing you see and that's going to grow are the greens. So usually the leafy greens and herbs are the plants that grow the fastest. You know, your like lettuces, arugula, herbs, young herbs, we sow, and usually like 3 weeks later we can already start harvesting them. So they grow fast. The next thing that develops strongly in a plant's life are the roots. So root vegetables, they take a bit longer from seed to harvest, because they have to develop their greens to make photosynthesis, and then use this energy and grow their roots. So root vegetables usually need at least 90 days before we can harvest them. Of course, radishes are a bit quick. They are an exception here, but on average, that's what we can keep in mind. And then the next step in the life of a plant is that it wants to multiply. So it wants to produce a flower. And after that, it needs time to grow the fruit and ripen it. And that needs at least 100, 120 days. And this is why our fruiting plants, like tomatoes, for example, they need that long. They need the long, hot summer to produce what we want to harvest in the end. And this is why we have to start our tomato plants early in spring so we can transplant them outside. If we would start them from seed outside, like now at the end of May, they might not have enough time to actually grow, produce all the leaves, produce a really strong root, and then the flowers, and finish ripening the fruit. Yeah, this is something we need to understand. Like, we have to understand our plants to make the right decisions in our gardens. But since we can start seeds inside and then transplant our seedlings outdoors, we can create a garden we want.
Oh, just a quick word on transplanting.
Sure.
Also, well, you want to harden these off also.
Yeah.
When you're in the house, you start your seeds in your pots in the house. You want to bring them outside for at least 2 weeks.
Yeah.
In the weather, just so they kind of harden off and get used to your weather conditions, and then you can transplant them. It'll make them they'll make the plants a little more hardy, and they'll be able to survive the transplant a little bit better.
Yeah. Otherwise, you get a shock, or the leaves burn, because like when you have the plant indoors, like they never experience sun, and the sun is more intense than any like grow light. The same with wind. Now they easily get wind burn when you bring a young lettuce plant outside that never encountered those conditions. They just they get stressed and they don't have the protection. So we have to expose them step by step to the outdoors. That's absolutely right. Another word on leafy greens and herbs and fruits, they're usually very easy to transplant. Root vegetables, however, they are not ideal to transplant. They usually don't do well. They are best direct sown. And another word on that, you might already kind of guess it. The fruity plants, they are, we call them warm season plants. So they are the ones that are highly sensitive to frost. So these are the ones we only plant out in the summer, between our last and first frost date. Leafy greens, herbs, and roots, however, they can deal with a bit of frost, or even with quite a bit of frost. So these are the ones we want to grow in our cool and cold season. And now we bring this all together. You have that also on in your workbook, and you can fill out in this diagram. So you can see here, actually already threw in those terms. So what when we talk about the seasons in Ontario, we have 3 seasons and they repeat each other. We start in January, February with the cold season. That's the time when we have a guaranteed chance of frost. We all know that. Then we transition into the cool season. That means that our temperatures can rise above 0 degrees, but we have a chance of frost, especially at night. But during the day, it's already like around 10 degrees, maybe even warmer, maybe up to 18 degrees, but the nights might be cooler. Then we have our last frost date, and that marks the beginning of the warm season. Temperatures are around 18 degrees to 29 degrees. And this is basically what we call summer, of course. And that time ends when we have our first frost date in fall, and that marks the beginning of our second cool season, which is actually my favorite time of the year. because we can grow so much. I'm going to talk about it in a second. And we also experienced, for like, thanks to climate change during the past couple of years, and this cool season here extended way into December. So we basically, like, this part, like this cold season here, which should kind of be in December, doesn't even really exist anymore. We had a client that told us that she had tomatoes. She lives near Toronto, like in Hamilton. She had tomatoes until the beginning of January this year. And this is just crazy. That means that she didn't have any sort of deep frost. And this is, yeah, like not the normal. So
Climate change.
that's definitely, yeah. So we're gonna have a much longer cool season here. This cold season is gonna be shorter than we're used to. And this cool season here extends as well. And this year, the spring like started basically a month earlier than usual. So we can, yeah, grow much earlier and much more. And what the nice thing about it is that a lot of the things we love to eat, lettuces and carrots and beets, these are all cool and cold season crops we can grow most of the year. And they even, like, we can grow them through the warm season. Like they're perfect. They're cool season crops, but they can withstand some warm temperatures, especially the root vegetables. We just have to make the right choice for the right seed. So we usually traditionally started sowing seeds outside mid-April when our ground is workable. That was for us the beginning of the outdoor gardening. And we started sowing beets and carrots, lettuces, pak choi, all the plants that like love the cool conditions and they can deal with a little bit of frost. And they thrive and they have time until the beginning of June to really grow, and then they will be ready to be harvested. Pak choi and lettuces and radishes, they will be finished basically by mid-June, because it just gets too hot for them. They're gonna start to bolt. But by that time, we already kind of started planting tomatoes and peppers and eggplants in our beds, and they will take up that space that some of the cool season crops inhabited before. And so we transition in our garden between the seasons. So we just make, plan what's in season. So cool season crops in spring, warm season crops in the summer. And then a lot of gardeners, they miss out on the second cool season. And that's really a shame, because when we start another load of lettuces and radishes, carrots, pak choi, tatsoi, broccoli at the right time, which means in August, we're gonna have all those wonderful greens and root vegetables way into the winter, especially when we use row covers in low tunnels or polytunnels. We can grow all winter long. We just have to kind of start early enough, because like plants, they need to be kind of mature or almost mature when we want it, like when we transition into the winter, because during the winter, they stay dormant. Like they don't really actively grow, but they're kind of, they survive and they will continue to grow later on when it gets warmer again. But we have to sow those seeds in August. And this is the time a lot of people like miss out on, because the garden is still full and there's still so much going on. And then we kind of forget it, and it's kind of the end of September and it's a bit too late, because the days are getting shorter. It's not as warm anymore. And if we would start seeds by then, it's too late, because those plants just won't grow big enough to bring them through the winter.
And that's what we mean when we tell our clients about intensive and successive planting.
Exactly.
So you're basically harvesting to make room for the next vegetable that's going to grow in the next season.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, you can grow something all year long. That's what we want to say, and especially if we use protective covers and tunnels, and growing the right things in the right seasons. And there are plants like tatsoi that can handle temperatures like down to -5, -10 degrees even. So they're really vegetables that are made for cold conditions, and they are ideal for our regions.
Oh, do you want to touch on garlic for them?
Yeah, thank you.
Bit?
Yeah, of course, garlic and also onions. Garlic, we plant the garlic in end of October, beginning of November, and the garlic stays dormant throughout the winter. You can do the same with onions. You can plant them as a bulb or even just as seeds. And then once it gets warm again in spring, they start to sprout and grow. And you will have a nice onion and garlic harvest in the summer to come. That's another thing we have to kind of think ahead. And it also sometimes makes things easier. And with milder winters, there are more and more seeds we can theoretically start in fall already, and they will sprout in spring as soon as it warms up. This year we had a lot of self-seeded like radishes and lettuces and mustards and even carrots in our garden from last year that we let go to flower and just self-seed. And that also shows that once we start a garden and we invest in seeds or in plants, we might be able to never, we don't have to buy seeds again.
Oh gosh, that's
ideal,
a whole nother,
it's a whole nother
topic, seed saving.
I know, but and it's a lot of fun as well.
But also, we didn't say also it's nice. Sometimes it's nice to let some of your vegetable plants go to flower. A lot of people don't realize how beautiful these flowers actually are, and it's good food actually also for the insects later in the year when they're ready to go to sleep. And it's just nice. I think it's nice at the end of the year.
Yeah, you contribute to
like parsnips and stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
Look really nice.
Yeah, so we hope that that helps you to make the right choices for your garden, to plant at the right time. And I think it's time for some question before.
Oh, before that though, I would also like to touch on one more thing.
Sure.
And that was about the pollinator gardens. And how it's just
you can see it here.
Yeah, it lets the pollinators come and they get attracted to your garden. And because we try not to use any pesticides, we don't use any pesticides at all. And we grow other plants like detractor plants and whatnot. So like what's a good example?
For example, here in the picture, you see we plant a lot of nasturtium and marigolds always in our beds and calendulas. And here you can see actually what you said before, this flowering mustards here.
Yeah. And it's just you can plant detractor plants also. If you don't want your pests to get to some of your prized vegetables or whatever it is you really love, and you don't want them to eat it all, which is another reason why we do this intensive and successive planting, because when you kind of row garden and then you get a pest infestation, like well there goes your whole crop, like it's pretty much done, and then you have to do something about it with pesticides or whatever the case may be. And today it's actually been found that a tomato has over 23 different kinds of pesticides in it. And it doesn't matter if you wash it anymore. It's in there. It's in your
when you buy from the store.
Yeah, it's in your fruit now. So you really kind of we're trying to get away from this now, trying to get away from modern agriculture and grow as you see here in the picture. And for us, it works out really well. We have a freezer downstairs full of fruits and vegetables. We have berry trees in the back, and we have our apple tree there. I'm just we try to get away from the whole modern agriculture if you studied it, it's starting to get a little bit crazy. I don't want to scare anybody with that or anything, but it's definitely better to grow your own organic vegetables. That's for sure.
Yeah, and it's basically like the way we create gardens. It's like back to the roots. If you look at indigenous garden methods, nobody grew a monoculture. So there was always like, just think of the three sisters. There's a reason for that we plant certain plants together. They benefit each other. Might it be because of nutrients or pests? And this is what we do. And you can see like our raised beds, they look like almost like a big chaos, but it's a plant chaos. So we have peppers here. We have I think it's a broccoli here, and surrounded by a lot of herbs. And the herbs and the nasturtiums, for example, they help to basically to camouflage the smell of cabbages, kale, broccoli, and that way for example, the white cabbage butterfly has a harder time to find that one crop that's kind of intermixed in this whole, big vegetable bed where there are a whole lot of other things, and the chances are like higher that your broccoli stays undetected by the white cabbage butterfly, and so you don't have the ugly caterpillars on it and issues with it, or at least the infestation is not so bad. And the next thing is that if you grow a lot of herbs and pollinator plants and flowers, you attract the beneficial insects that want to eat your pest. So we are trying to create basically an ecosystem in our garden, so we really don't need to interfere. It is sometimes a bit hard for us gardeners to kind of hold back when we see, oh, there's something going on. But if we want to invite predators in our garden, they only come when there is some food. So if you see aphids, just let them be there, take a deep breath. The
ladybugs will come.
And they will come, but they only come if there is something there. And then once they are in your garden, they will stay there. But we need to learn again to like live and grow with nature and not against it. Yeah, I think
that's good. That's a good conclusion.
A good conclusion. Okay. So yeah, if you can, we would like to invite you to our Facebook group if you're interested. We share regularly what's going on in our garden and give tips of what to do. So it's called the Nordic Gardeners. You find it easily on Facebook, and yeah, you're welcome to follow us and subscribe to our newsletter. I know some of you already did, which is really nice. Thank you so much. We love to grow our community and to share the love of gardening. And I'm just gonna stop sharing now and see if there are any questions. I see that there is. Where's the chat? Just disappeared. Oh, there's the chat. So okay, so we have a question from Shelly. She says, last year carrot tops were eaten, not sure critter or by pests. Any thoughts and non-pesticide suggestions? Yeah, that's a good question. It could have, like, carrot tops sounds like critters to me.
Yeah, it sounds less like pests, but
I mean, it could be the how's it called that? Now my brain is blank.
you're a plant expert. Whoops.
How is it called?
Well, the clients
comes, yeah.
The clients are getting to me.
No problem.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it is hard to say like afterwards. But I would always I think it was definitely some sort of mouse. definitely. And our
Not a
ex-
bowl.
our experience with any critters is that we had the most success with the sound deterrent devices.
Yeah, the solar sound.
Yeah, the solar sound, and we even one year Eric installed a plug for indoor from indoors outside that even worked
The
really well.
ultrasonic, the ultrasonic
Yeah,
plugs.
yeah,
They work pretty well too.
yeah. I think so. Thank you. Yeah, in garden boxes, if you want to try to keep critters out of raised beds, you really need to enclose them. We built one critter resistant house, and we put a mesh in the bottom of the raised beds or boxes, and then completely enclose it. Like there is it's surrounded by a chicken wire fencing structure. And that's the only way you can really keep critters completely away from the raised beds.
But make sure to use the small grating and not the 1-inch chicken wire,
Mhm.
as a lot of chipmunks, as we've learned, and squirrels actually literally chew through the chicken wire. They can make a bigger hole and actually make it in. So it's better to get a thicker material. The square grids are much better with the smaller sized holes.
And you can even like kind of build a structure like how do you say, not like a box on, like almost like a cold frame, but with wire mesh on top of the raised bed, and then, as I said, in the bottom of the bed, and that's the best you can do basically. I know some of our fellow coaches, they created that for strawberry beds to keep chipmunks out and squirrels out, and that worked really well. Okay, there any more questions? You can also unmute yourself if you want.
Oh, looks pretty good.
Yeah. Okay.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for joining us today. It was that was fun. Always fun to talk about gardening, and especially before you have to go finish it and stuff.
No, and it's a really good time now to get to the garden. Now we're officially in the beginning of the warm season, and I mean traditionally Victoria weekend marks that anyways for us in our region, and this year it really works out. And I'm sure a lot of you are gonna spend this weekend outside and plant, and that's really, really wonderful. Don't forget to include a lot of flowers and herbs in your garden. And yeah, and if there's anything, you have our email addresses. You can always send us an email if there's anything, or yeah, as I said, follow us on our social media channels and
enjoy your gardening.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you very much.
Spread the love of gardening. Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
Perfect.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.